Welcome back to Coaching with the Bible. This week, the portion of Tzav and the beginning of the holiday of Passover. Our topic on preparation. There are so many different chores and tasks that people have around their homes and in their businesses and their lives. Some of them become theirs for life, and some of them switch. Every household is different on that. One that I own effectively and have for a very long time is the taking out of the trash, taking out garbage. And it just sort of became my thing, and it's something that I do. Particularly, the one I want to focus in on here this week is on Sunday evenings in particular, because in the neighborhood where we live, some Monday morning is a big garbage pickup, it's big trash pickup, because it's not just the regular trash, but also the recycling trash. And the recycling trash has to be put in a particular colored bag and put in a particular spot so that when the garbage collectors come in the morning, and it's early in the morning on Monday, it's already there. So every Sunday evening, I have the ritual, effectively at this point, a habituated activity and ritual of taking out the trash and making sure that the trash is ready for early Monday morning. So like clockwork, every Sunday night, the last thing I do before turning in for the night is to take out the trash and have it ready for Monday morning. Because if you miss Monday, then it's 3 days until Thursday, and the recycling not again until the following Monday, and you don't want that to happen. And so it's interesting for us to see that in this week's reading, the chapters on Tzav, that the first task that's mentioned in this reading is about the priest, whose task it is to clean up the altar and to take out the trash from the altar. Sort of an amazing ritual. And where it goes ultimately to is the idea, which is really a theme that is strung along throughout this week's portion, of preparation. Almost practice, but really preparation. And so it's interesting also, just to first note with respect to the taking out of the trash, the ritual by the priest. This is a task the priest is doing at a very early part of the day. Before the sunrise, before any of the work is actually begun, this task must be done. This is the first task in the service in the temple in the daytime to be done, is the taking out of the trash. And not only that, but when the priest does it, it's not just any person that does it. It's a priest. It's a member of the priestly, it's a Kohen who's doing it. So it's not just a person who works in the building, or the janitor, or whoever is the person who's doing it. It's an important job. It's an important task. It's a task assigned to a priest. And so when he does that task, he gets dressed. Yes, he gets dressed in slightly different clothing, perhaps, but he is dressed to do the work. He puts himself together to go do this task. And why is it so important that this task get done? Well, obviously you don't want to mess in the temple in Jerusalem. You want it to look nice and to be clean and neat. But really it's about preparing for the coming day's work. And to be able to have the coming day's work be successful, one has to prepare the environment for which there's going to be success. And so this priest's job is significant and important because it gets the place ready for the coming day. What's also interesting to note is that it's not done like I do it the night before. It's done in the morning of. And so it's not the last task of the previous day. It's the first task of the new day. And the sense is that one day builds on the next day. Rabbi Shalom Rosner, in the recently released edition of Shalom Rav, which is a collection of his works on the weekly parsha, on the weekly reading, quotes from Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch on that exact idea that each day leads to the next, and each day is connected to the next. One builds on the next, that the future is built on the shoulders of the past day. So the past day's work is completed, but it bleeds almost in a certain sense. It leads into the beginning of the next day. So the new day is built on the old day. So it's a very interesting idea about preparation, but it's really not the only preparation described in this week's portion. There's a description about preparing the fire and having the fire consistently be burning on the altar. There's an entire section of discussions about the priests themselves in preparation for the inauguration of the temple and tabernacle in the desert. It was a week of preparation that went into that. So this notion of getting it right by preparing is super uber important. Moses teaches them, Aaron and his sons and the family, how to do the work, how to put the clothes on, how to make sure that it works every day. Took it down each and every day for the week, put it back up the next morning, so that there was an entire preparatory process, so that when it launched, and when that first day of Nisan, the day of the inauguration of the tabernacle in the desert, when God's presence would rest on the camp, they had already learned to do the work. There is one source, I could not find it, I'd seen it earlier in the week, but that mentions the idea that every day after Moses had taken down the tabernacle, that the priests wouldn't go home, that they would rest on location, on the spot, so that they would be ready and in mode for the following day, and that they would be enmeshed and entrenched in the space and in the spirit of the work that they were going to be done. This was their quote-unquote spring training, for lack of a better term. There must be a better term for it than that. But that is the idea here. So this entire set of ideas and laws and practices are about preparation, preparing the altar for the next day, preparing the space for the service of the coming day, and the preparatory period of the priests leading into the inauguration of the tabernacle. And so it's really important for us to appreciate the idea that from our standpoint in our work, in our ability to improve, and in our ability to get better results, that it's not happenstance and it's not just relying on hope and luck, but that there has to be preparation that gets it done. I know that in the fundraising work that I do, in the coaching work that I do with organizations, so we talk a lot about prep. There's an entire sort of period of time of 5 to 6 weeks of stealth work that's going on that builds and builds and builds on itself until a campaign for an organization is going to go live. And then it goes live and it succeeds. But it's built on having done all the preparatory work, putting all the pieces in the right places, really understanding how everything fits together, really preparing the groundwork for what's going to be successful. And so the ability to have a great launch and a great start. James Clear, who I've mentioned a lot over the last number of weeks in the book Atomic Habits, but also in a talk that I recently heard him give, talks about the idea of optimizing for the starting line, not for the finish line. Is that everybody, for the most part, is focused on how much weight am I going to lose? How fast am I going to go at the end of that? Where's my time going to be at the end? But when realize that with elite athletes, let's take runners for a moment, that they spend an incredible amount of time optimizing their start. The first step, 2 steps out of the gate, how they're leaning, where their feet are going to be, where their fingers are going to be, anticipation of the gun going off. So optimizing for the starting line, getting that preparatory period right so that the start is amazing and that the start will help lead to the end. So in the fundraising work that we do, we try to almost script that period of time when a campaign launches, because so much has gone into getting it right that we really want it to be perfectly right once it launches. And so we do a lot of little tricks and a lot of little strategy moves to get the launch of the campaign right, because we want to optimize for the starting line. We want to put ourselves in a position to ultimately succeed. And so this week is very much about the idea of preparation. Also, it is because it's the week of the holiday of Passover, Pesach, coming in this week. So everyone knows that there's an inordinate amount of preparation that goes in to getting our homes ready for the holiday. The entire turnover of a home for the Seder night, for that event, for that ceremony, for that ritual, for that happening, for the family and for the people there, is an incredible amount of preparation that goes into getting that right. One doesn't just show up at that event and then it be perfect. One goes into it having put in an incredible amount of time. It's almost like in its own right a project that needs management. It'll be the day in the future when we'll have the opportunity in this format, in this forum, coaching with the Bible, that we will coach with the Seder. And we'll go in there and look at all the incredible coaching principles that are built in, both obvious and latent, in the Seder experience. But for this year, about preparation, about going into that event, optimized for the starting line so that the finish line is incredible. And so share that idea here. Whereas, yes, you are, managing with your team in your family to get all the different things right, the food right, the cleaning right, the table right, the clothing right, the books right, so people have the texts in front of them that they want, they have the wine that they want to drink, all of those accoutrements and, commandments that are key to the success of the night, but also prepare for that opening moment. Prepare for that starting line. Come to that starting line ready for that event to be massively successful. And then, without question, the end is going to be amazing. But prepare for the starting line. Come into it having thought it through. What are my goals? What do I want to have accomplished here? What do I want everyone to get out of it? Think through all the different people that are participating in that event with you. And if you're the one leading, what can you hope and want and desire for those people, whether it's children, spouses, family members, friends, guests, whoever they may be, to get out of those experiences? Years ago, I served as a rabbi at a hotel for a number of years for the holiday. And so I would lead these public seders, these group gatherings, very diverse and disparate kinds of people coming together in this space, and I was to lead. And so my prep for weeks in advance was the idea of trying to think through what are the themes and what are the ideas and what is the experience that I want people to have to come out with at the end of it. That is not different than it is than in my work day to day now with respect to coaching organizations and leaders. And that's not different, I imagine, for everyone else as well. Sort of thinking through getting all of the steps right, getting it organized, getting it to result in the way we want it to result, putting all the things in place so that the end line is optimized because we did the preparatory at the starting line as well. So as we go into that holiday, the couple of days still ahead of us, there's really time to prepare for that starting line. Take those first moments, really make them magical so that the rest of the moments can be incredible on the other side. So this week's Coaching with the Bible was slightly different because we focused a lot more heavily on the biblical part of it. But keep James Clear's words in mind. The idea of incrementally changing day to day with our habits and our rituals and becoming better people 1% at a time is what he talks about in Atomic Habits. And in particular this week, when we're talking about preparation, based on our brief learning about the priest who's cleaning up the altar and getting out the trash, and those who are working to make sure that the fires are burning, and the priests who are preparing for the day on which the tabernacle will be live and in motion and in session with the presence of God. take the prep seriously. Do the work for the prep in advance. And so that ultimately the optimization for the starting line can lead to an amazing experience at the finish line. That's Coaching with the Bible for this week. Those of you celebrating Passover the coming week, have a happy, healthy, and enjoyable holiday. Those of you celebrating Shabbat, have a Shabbat Shalom. Those of you who are just here to enjoy, I hope I shared something that's enjoyable for you. See you next week.